Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the EU's Valiant, watching the stars drift past through the main view screen. The ship was 3 days out from Earth Colony 7, carrying supplies and new colonists to the growing settlement. It was routine work, the kind that kept the bills paid and the crew fed. Jake liked routine. After 15 years in space, he had learned that exciting missions usually meant someone was dying. The bridge was quiet, except for the steady hum of the life support systems. Pilot Amy Rodriguez sat at her station, running diagnostics on the navigation computer. Engineer Ben Cooper was somewhere deep in the engine room, probably talking to the fusion reactors like they were old friends. Dr. Carl Jensen was in the medical bay, updating his files on alien biology. It was a small crew, but they worked well. Together, Jake was about to head to his quarters when the communication console started beeping. Amy looked up from her work and frowned. That's weird. I'm getting a signal on the emergency frequency. Put it through, Jake said. Walking over to stand behind her chair, the speakers crackled with static, then a voice came through. It was human, female, and scared. This is Dr. Lisa Hayes at Kepler Research Station. You're under attack by unknown forces. Repeat. We are under attack. They're taking prisoners. Scientists from all species. Anyone who receives this message, please help us. The Coalition fleet is weeks away. We need immediate assistance. The message repeated twice more, then cut to static. Amy ran her fingers over the controls, trying to clean up the signal, but nothing more came through. Where's Kepler Station? Jake asked. Amy pulled up the star charts on her screen. It's about 6 hours away at maximum speed. It's that joint research facility studying the dying star system. We've got people from 12 different species working there. Ben's voice came through the ship's intercom. Captain, I heard the message down here. My cousin works at Kepler Station. She's a geology specialist. Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. He had met Ben's cousin once at a spaceport bar. She was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes and a laugh that filled the room. The thought of her in danger made his hands clench into fists. Amy, set course for Kepler Station. Maximum speed? Sir, Amy said, her voice careful. We should probably contact Earth Command first. Get orders. This could be dangerous. Jake was quiet for a moment. He knew Amy was right. Protocol said to report the emergency and wait for instructions. Protocol also said that people in distress took priority over paperwork. No, he said finally. We're the closest ship. Every minute we wait is another minute those people are in danger. Amy nodded and began entering the course change into the navigation computer. The ship's engines hummed louder as they increased speed toward the Kepler system. Jake walked to his command chair and pressed the button for ship-wide communications. All hands. This is the captain. We just received a distress signal from Kepler Research Station. Unknown forces have attacked the station and are taking prisoners. We're going to help. I know this isn't what we signed up for when we took this cargo run, but people are in trouble. Anyone who wants to transfer off at the next port is free to do so. No questions asked. He released the button and waited. Within minutes, his crew started checking in. Ben from the engine room. My reactors are running smooth, Captain. We'll get there fast. Dr. Jensen from the medical bay. I'm preparing for possible casualties. Amy from her pilot station, course laid in and holding steady. Then the alien members of his crew responded. Kepler, the Zephyrian navigator, spoke in his musical voice. This one will assist. Navigation through the star system will be challenging, but possible. Velinara, the Andromedan communications specialist, added, Communications arrays are ready for any frequency needed. Jake felt a surge of pride in his crew. They could have said no. They could have pointed out that this wasn't their job, that they were cargo haulers, not military. But they didn't. The next few hours passed slowly. Jake found himself pacing the bridge, checking and rechecking their course. Amy ran constant scans, looking for any signs of other ships or debris. Ben pushed the engines harder than he should. Coaxing extra speed from the aging fusion drives, Dr. Jensen came to the bridge. Carrying a medical kit and a worried expression. Jake, I've been thinking about that message. She said they were taking prisoners, specifically scientists. That's not normal pirate behavior. What do you mean? Pirates want cargo or ransom money? They don't usually care about what people do for work. If someone is specifically targeting scientists, they want something else. Knowledge, maybe, or the people themselves. Jake felt the cold feeling in his stomach get worse. Any idea who would do something like that? No, but I've been monitoring the Galactic news feeds. There have been rumors about ships disappearing in the outer systems. Always research vessels or exploration ships. Always with mixed species crews. Kepler's musical voice interrupted them. Captain, we are approaching the Kepler system. I am detecting unusual energy signatures near the research station. Jake moved to the sensor display. The screen showed the Kepler system with its dying red star at the center. The research station appeared as a small dot orbiting the fourth planet. But there were other dots on the screen, much larger ones. Amy, what are those? Amy's fingers danced over her controls. Unknown vessels, Captain. I count at least 5 of them. They're big. Bigger than anything in the Coalition database. Response to hails. Velinara spoke from her communications station. No response on any frequency. The unknown vessels are maintaining position around the research station. I am detecting very weak signals from the station itself. Life support appears to be functioning in some sections. Jake stared at the screen. 5 unknown ships, each one larger than his cargo hauler. Whatever had attacked Kepler station had come prepared for a fight, but somewhere on that station, people were waiting for help. Ben's cousin was waiting for help. Take us in slowly, Jake ordered. Passive scans only. I want to know what we're dealing with before they know we're here. The Valiant crept closer to the research station. On the screen, Jake could see that parts of the station were dark, with sections that looked like they had been cut away with surgical precision. But other parts were still lit, still showing signs of life. There, Amy said, pointing to a section near the station's docking bay. I'm reading life signs in that area. Looks like maybe 30 or 40 people. Any sign of the attackers? The unknown ships are just sitting there. No movement, no energy buildup. It's like they're waiting for something. Jake made his decision. Take us to the station's emergency docking port. Ben, I need everything you can give me from the engines. If we need to run, I want to be able to run fast. You got it, Captain? As the Valiant approached the research station, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were flying into something much bigger than a simple rescue mission. But looking at his crew, seeing their determination, he knew they would face whatever was waiting for them. Because that's what humans did. When someone called for help, they answered, even when the smart thing to do was stay away. The used Valiant drifted toward Kepler Research Station like a mouse approaching a sleeping cat. Jake watched the sensor readings with growing unease. The 5 alien ships hung in space around the station, dark and silent. They were unlike anything. In the Coalition database, their hulls seemed to bend light around them, making them hard to look at directly. Those ships, Amy whispered from her pilot station, they don't look right. The way they're shaped, it's like someone built them wrong on purpose. Kepler's musical voice was quieter than usual. This one agrees. The energy patterns are unlike any known technology. They seem to fold space around themselves. Jake nodded. He had seen a lot of alien ships in his 15 years in space, but these were different. Most ships were built for function. These looked like they were built to make people afraid. Any movement from them? He asked. Velinara checked her instruments. Negative. They remain in their positions. However, I am detecting strange scanning. Beams directed at our vessel. Before Jake could respond, the ship shuddered. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as something slammed into their shields. Incoming fire, Amy shouted, her hands flying over the controls. Multiple energy beams from the lead ship. The Valiant shook again as more weapons fire struck them. Jake grabbed his command chair as the lights flickered. Return fire, he ordered. We're a cargo ship, Amy said, wrestling with the controls as another blast rocked them. We've got mining lasers, and that's about it. Then use the mining lasers. Ben's voice crackled over the intercom from the engine room. Captain, these aren't normal weapons hitting us. My instruments are going crazy. It's like they're shooting space itself at us. Jake watched the main screen as one of the alien ships moved closer. It didn't fly the way ships should fly. Instead of turning and accelerating, it simply seemed to appear in a new position, as if it had folded the distance between where it was and where it wanted to be. Amy, evasive maneuvers. Get us to the station's docking bay. Working on it, Amy said through gritted teeth. She threw the ship into a spinning dive that would have made Jake sick if he hadn't been too scared to notice. The alien weapons followed them. Beams of twisted energy that made the space around them ripple like water. When the beams missed, they didn't just fly past. They curved back around and tried to hit the Valiant again. These weapons are tracking us, Dr. Jensen said, from where he was strapped into a spare seat on the bridge. That shouldn't be possible. Jake was about to respond when something strange happened. The alien weapons suddenly stopped firing. 5 ships pulled back to their original positions and went still again. What just happened? Jake asked. Kethtar studied his instruments. Unknown. The alien vessels have ceased their attack and returned to passive observation. They were playing with us, Amy said, her voice tight with anger. They could have destroyed us any time they wanted. They were just testing us. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Amy was right. The aliens had attacked just long enough to see how the Valiant would respond, then stopped, like scientists studying a lab rat. Take us to the docking bay, he ordered. Carefully. The Valiant limped toward the research station. Up close, Jake could see the damage more clearly. Sections of the station had been cut away with surgical precision. The cuts were too clean to be from explosions. Someone had carved pieces out of the station like taking slices from a cake, Velinara said, pointing to her screen. I am detecting life signs in Section 7. Approximately 43 individuals of various species. Any humans? Yes. I count 12 human life signs among the survivors. Jake felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. People were still alive, meant they weren't too late. Docking bay was damaged but still functional. Amy brought the Valiant in with the skill that had made her one of the best pilots in the outer colonies. The ship settled into the docking cradle with barely a bump. Ben, keep the engines warm, Jake ordered. I have a feeling we might need to leave in a hurry. Jake, Dr. Jensen, and Kethtar suited up for the boarding operation. The station's atmosphere was still good in most sections, but Jake didn't want to take chances. They entered the station through the emergency airlock. The corridors were dark, except for the red glow of emergency lighting. Their footsteps echoed in the empty halls. Jake had been on research stations before. They were usually full of noise. In activity, this one felt like a tomb. They found the survivors huddled in what used to be the station's main laboratory. The room was crowded with frightened beings from a dozen different species. Humans sat next to tall gray Andromedans and small furry Centaurians. Everyone looked scared. A human woman approached them as they entered. She was in her 30s, with short brown hair and the kind of tired eyes that came from too much stress and too little sleep. I'm Dr. Lisa Hayes, she said. You got our message. Jake Morrison, use Valiant. We're here to get you out. Dr. Hayes laughed, but there was no humor in it, just one ship, against those things out there. Those things didn't seem interested. In destroying us, Jake said. What are they? We don't know. They showed up 2 days ago and just started taking people. Not killing them, taking them. They seem to want one of each species represented here. Taking them where? To their ships. I think they're studying us. The ones they took first were our xenobiologists and cultural specialists. People who study how different species think and behave. Dr. Jensen stepped forward. Dr. Hayes. I'm Carl Jensen, medical officer. Are any of the survivors injured? Some, but that's not our biggest problem. Dr. Hayes led them to a window that looked out at the alien ships. Watch this. A control panel and sent out a standard coalition distress signal. Immediately, one of the alien ships moved closer to the station. It didn't fire, but weapons ports opened along its hull. They don't want us calling for help, Dr. Hayes explained. Every time we try to send a message, they move closer. Like they're warning us. Jake studied the alien ship through the window. Its hull seemed to shift and change as he watched, making it hard to focus on. How many people did they take? He asked. 37 so far. They take them in groups of 5 or 6. Always a mix of species, always people with specific knowledge or skills. Any pattern to who they choose. An Andromedan. Scientists approached them. Jake recognized the species by their tall, thin frames and large dark eyes. This one wore the blue robes of a research specialist. I am researcher Malter, the Andromedan said in the musical language of his people. The attacker seemed most interested. In our behavioral specialists and cultural experts, they have taken our best minds in xenopsychology and interspecies relations. They're building a database, Dr. Jensen said suddenly. They want to understand how different species think and react. Jake felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together. In his mind, Dr. Hayes, when they attacked, how did your people react? What do you mean? Did you fight back? Try to negotiate? What did you do? Dr. Hayes looked confused. We followed standard emergency protocols. We tried to evacuate non-essential personnel and establish communication with the attackers and the other species. It's pretty much the same. The Zephyrians tried to hide in the lower levels. The Centaurians attempted to negotiate. The Andromedans worked on technical solutions to drive them off, but nobody fought them directly. Dr. Hayes stared at him. Fight them? Captain, look at those ships. Look at their weapons. Fighting them would be suicide. Jake nodded, but he was thinking about something else. In 15 years of space travel, he had seen how different species handled crisis. Most tried to avoid conflict or find technological solutions. Very few chose to fight when the odds were against them. But humans were different. When humans were cornered, when people they cared about were in danger, they didn't always make the smart choice. Sometimes, they made the human choice. Dr. Hayes, Jake said, I need you to gather everyone who can walk. We're getting out of here. How? Those ships will stop us. Jake looked out at the alien vessels floating in the darkness. Maybe, but I don't think they've dealt with humans before. And I don't think they're ready for what we do when someone takes our people. He activated his communicator. Amy, warm up the engines. Ben, I need every bit of power you can give me. We're about to find out what these aliens do when their lab rats bite back. Jake Morrison moved through the damaged research station like a man with a plan, even though he was making most of it up as he went. The survivors followed him in small groups, staying close to the walls and moving quietly. Dr. Hayes walked beside him, pointing out sections that were still safe to travel through. Captain, she said in a low voice, I need to tell you something about those aliens. While I was their prisoner, I heard them talking. You were captured. For 6 hours yesterday. They let me go after they finished their tests. Dr. Hayes shuddered. They're not like any species I've studied. They don't seem to understand basic concepts like fear or anger. When I tried to resist, they just watched me like I was a fascinating puzzle. Jake helped an elderly Centaurian scientist over a piece of twisted metal. What kind of tests? They wanted to see how I reacted to different situations. Stress, pain, isolation. But not to hurt me. They were collecting data. When they had enough information, they just released me back to the station. Did they say anything about humans specifically? Dr. Hayes was quiet for a moment. Yes. They called us anomalous. Said our behavioral patterns didn't match their models. They seemed excited about that. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had always known humans were different from most species in the galaxy. Humans came from Earth, a world that most aliens considered too dangerous to live on. But hearing that these creatures found humans interesting was not comforting. They reached the station's main computer core, where Jake hoped to find more information about their attackers. The room was mostly intact, though several workstations had been carefully dismantled. They took our xenopsychology databases, Dr. Hayes explained. All our research on how different species think and behave. 20 years of work gone? Amy's voice crackled through Jake's communicator. Captain, we've got movement out here. 2 of the alien ships are changing position. Jake keyed his radio. Are they targeting us? No, sir. They're moving to block the main shipping lane. It's like they don't want anyone else to get close. Jake thought about that. The aliens weren't trying to destroy them. They were controlling the situation, making sure no other ships could interfere. It was the behavior of someone conducting an experiment who didn't want outside variables. Dr. Jensen appeared from the medical section, supporting a wounded Zephyrian. Jake, I've been talking to the other survivors. These aliens have been taking people for weeks, not just from this station. Ships have been disappearing all across this sector. How many ships? At least a dozen? Always research vessels or exploration? Ships. Always with mixed crews from different species. Kethar's musical voice joined the conversation. This one has heard rumors in Zephyrian space. Ships that answer distress calls and are never seen again. The Spacing Guild believes it may be connected to these attackers. Jake felt pieces of the puzzle falling into place. They're not random raiders. They're building something. A collection. A collection of what? Dr. Hayes asked. Behavioral patterns. They want to understand how every intelligent race in the galaxy thinks and reacts. Jake moved to one of the working computer terminals. Dr. Hayes, can you access the station's sensor logs? I want to see exactly how these aliens operate. Doctor? Hayes worked at the terminal for several minutes, pulling up data from the past few days. The screen showed sensor readings from the alien attack. Jake studied the patterns, looking for something that might give them an advantage. There, he said, pointing at the screen. Look at how they responded when your people tried different things. When the Zephyrians hid, the aliens searched methodically. When the Centaurians tried to negotiate, the aliens listened but didn't respond. When the Andromedans tried technical countermeasures, the aliens adapted their technology. They're learning, Dr. Jensen said. Each response teaches them something new about that species. But they haven't dealt with humans fighting back, Jake said. Not really. Dr. Hayes, when you were captured, did you fight them? I tried to escape a few times, but their technology is so advanced, fighting seemed pointless. Jake nodded.
Oh.
Most species in the galaxy were logical. When faced with overwhelming odds, they looked for clever solutions or tried to avoid conflict entirely. It was the smart thing to do, but humans weren't always smart. Captain, I've been monitoring the alien ships. Their energy patterns are strange. It's like they're not using normal power sources. What do you mean? Well, most ships generate power and then use it. These ships seem to pull energy from somewhere else. Like they're connected to something we can't see. Hey, Dr. Hayes looked up from the computer terminal. Hey, that matches what I observed during my capture. Hey, their ship didn't have any visible power generators. No fusion reactors, no antimatter containment, but it had more energy available than should be possible. Jake thought about that. The alien ships were getting power from an external source that might be a weakness they could exploit. But first, they needed to get the survivors off the station. Amy, he said into his communicator, what's our status for departure? Ready when you are, Captain? But those alien ships are still watching us. It's the moment we try to leave. They'll probably attack. Maybe not, Jake said. They've been studying how different species react to crisis, but they haven't seen humans react yet. Not really. He turned to address the group of survivors. There were humans, Zephyrians, Centaurians, Andromedans, and half a dozen other species represented. All of them looked scared and tired. Listen up, Jake said. But we're not going to run, and we're not going to try to sneak past them. We're going to do something they won't expect. What? Dr. Hayes asked. Going to make them come to us? Jake explained his plan. Instead of trying to avoid the alien ships, they were going to challenge them directly. Force them into a situation they hadn't studied yet. The Zephyrian survivors looked horrified. The Centaurians tried to suggest alternatives. The Andromedans began calculating the odds of success, but the humans nodded. Even Dr. Hayes, who had seen what the aliens were capable of, agreed to the plan. This is insane, said researcher Malter, the Andromedan scientist. You will all be killed. Maybe, Jake said, but maybe not. These aliens have been studying how we think by watching us run and hide. Let's show them something different. Dr. Jensen was already moving to gather medical supplies. We're doing this. We need to be prepared for casualties. He activated his communicator. Amy, Ben, I need you to modify our mining lasers. I don't care if it breaks safety protocols. I want every bit of firepower we can manage. You got it, Captain? Ben replied. Though I should mention, pushing our equipment this hard might damage the ship permanently. It's better a damaged ship than a captured crew. As the survivors prepared to leave the station, Jake found himself thinking about something Dr. Hayes had said. The aliens found human behavior anomalous. They were excited by patterns they couldn't predict. Jake smiled grimly. They wanted to see anomalous behavior. He was about to give them a masterclass in human stubbornness. Dr. Hayes, he said, when we get back to my ship, I want you to send a message to those alien vessels. What kind of message? Tell them we want our people back. And tell them if they don't return our people, we're going to take them back. Dr. Hayes stared at him. Captain, that's essentially a declaration of war against a superior. Force, yes, Jake said. It is. And that's exactly why they won't see it coming. The EU's Valiant pulled away from Kepler Research Station, with 43 survivors crammed into every available space. Jake stood on the bridge, watching the 5 alien ships on his main screen. They had not moved from their positions, but he could see weapon ports opening along their hulls. Message sent, Captain Velanara reported from her communications station. I have transmitted your demand for the return of all captured personnel to the alien vessels. Any response? Not yet. However, I am detecting increased activity from their ships. Energy patterns suggest they are communicating with each other. Jake nodded. He had not expected an immediate answer. What he wanted was to get their attention, to make them focus on his ship instead of the other survivors. So far it seemed to be working. Dr. Hayes stood next to him, looking nervous. Captain, I've been thinking about what you said, about showing them something they haven't seen before. What exactly are you planning? Something stupid, Jake said honestly, but something human. Amy turned from her pilot station. Captain, we've got a problem. The alien ships are moving to surround us. If we try to jump to hyperspace, they'll be able to intercept us. Jake studied the tactical display. The aliens were positioning themselves perfectly to cut off any escape route. It was exactly what he had hoped they would do. Good, he said. Doctor, Hayes asked. How is that good? Because now they're focused on us instead of looking for other rescue ships. And because they're treating us like every other species they've encountered. They think we'll try to run. Ben's voice crackled over the intercom from the engine room. Captain, I've got those mining laser modifications ready. Fair warning, though, if we actually fire these things, there's a good chance we'll blow out our own power grid. Understood. How long can we maintain full power? Maybe 10 minutes before the reactors start overheating. After that, we'll be dead in space. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. Amy at her pilot station, hands steady on the controls despite the impossible odds. Velanara, monitoring communications, ready to coordinate with any other ships that might arrive. Kepler, at navigation, calculating jump coordinates they might never use. Dr. Jensen had come up from the medical bay and was standing ready with emergency medical supplies. They were all scared. Jake could see it in their faces, but they were also determined. When humans decided to protect something, fear became a secondary concern. Velanara, open a channel to the alien ships, Jake ordered. Channel open, Captain. Jake took a deep breath. This is Commander Jake Morrison of the UES Valiant. You have taken 37 people from Kepler Research Station. We want them back. You have 60 seconds to respond before we consider you hostile and act accordingly. He nodded to Velanara, who closed the channel. The bridge was quiet except for the hum of the ship's systems. Captain, Dr. Hayes said quietly, those ships could destroy us in seconds. You know that, right? Maybe, but they haven't so far. They've had plenty of chances, because they want to study us too. Exactly. And the best way to study something is to see how it reacts under pressure. The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at the interior of one of the alien ships. The being that appeared was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It was tall and thin, with smooth gray skin that seemed to shift and change color. Its face was almost human-like, but the eyes were too large and too dark. When it spoke, its voice was like music played on broken instruments. I am the one you would call the curator. We have received your demand. It is most interesting.
Your
Species continues to display behavior patterns that do not match our models. Return our people, Jake said simply. Your people are safe. They are part of our collection now. We preserve them, study them, ensure their survival. This is a great honor. They didn't ask for that honor. The curator tilted its head in a way. That reminded Jake of a bird studying a worm. Choice is an interesting concept. Most species, when faced with extinction, choose survival over preference. Your species seems to choose differently. Our species chooses to protect our own. Yes, we have observed this pattern. Even when protection is futile, humans attempt it. Even when survival requires abandoning others, humans refuse it. It is most anomalous. Jake felt something cold and angry growing in his chest. This creature was talking about his people like they were interesting insects. Anomalous or not, we want them back. That is not possible. However, we would be willing to add you and your crew to our collection. You would be well cared for. Your basic needs would be met. You would contribute to our understanding of galactic biodiversity. No deal. The curator's expression didn't change, but Jake could see lights blinking faster on the alien ship's bridge behind it. This response was predicted. Humans show an unusual attachment to what you call freedom. We will now demonstrate why this attachment is irrational. The communication ended. Immediately, all 5 alien ships began moving toward the Valiant. Here we go, Amy said, her hands tightening on the flight controls. Jake activated the ship's internal communications. All hands, this is the captain. We're about to engage 5 alien vessels in combat. Our chances are not good. Anyone who wants to surrender is free to do so. No one will think less of you. He waited. No one responded. Amy, evasive maneuvers. Ben, give me everything we've got. Let's show these collectors what humans do when someone tries to put us in a cage. Valiant suddenly leaped forward as Amy threw the ship into a diving attack, run toward the nearest alien vessel. The modified mining lasers fired, sending beams of coherent light stabbing toward the alien ship's hull that, to everyone's surprise, the beams actually hit their target. Sections of the alien ship's hull began to glow and smoke. We hurt them. Ben shouted over the intercom. Their shields aren't designed for that kind of focused energy. But the celebration was short-lived. The alien ship's hull rippled, and the damage simply disappeared, as if it had never happened. Self-repair systems, Dr. Jensen said grimly. Advanced nanotechnology. The aliens fired back, but their weapons were different now. Instead of the space-bending energy beams they had used before, they fired something that looked like nets made. Of light, the nets wrapped around the Valiant, slowing it down but not damaging it. They're trying to capture us intact, Amy said, struggling with the controls. They want us alive. Jake realized what was happening. The aliens weren't trying to destroy them. They were trying to add them to their collection. That gave him an idea, Amy. Stop fighting the nets. Let them pull us in, sir. You heard me, Ben? Shut down all non-essential systems. Make it look like we're disabled, Captain. What are you doing? Dr. Hayes asked. Jake watched as the alien ships moved closer, preparing to bring the Valiant into one of their docking bays. I'm giving them what they want. They want to study human behavior under stress. Let's give them a close-up look. The Valiant was pulled into the largest alien ship like a fish being reeled in by an angler. Jake could see the alien docking bay through the main screen. It was huge, with several other ships already captured and held in energy fields. There, he said, pointing to a familiar-looking vessel. That's the research ship from the Andromeda station, and that one's from the Centauri expedition. Dr. Hayes stared at the captured ships. How many people do you think they have? Hundreds? Maybe thousands. Jake turned to his crew. Everyone remembered the plan. We'd let them take us aboard. We act defeated until we can find where they're keeping the prisoners. Then we show them something they haven't seen before. What's that? Amy asked. Jake smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. What happens when you cage a pack animal and threaten its family? The Valiant sat in the alien docking bay, surrounded by energy fields that hummed with power. Jake looked out at the captured ships around them. There were dozens of vessels from across the galaxy, all held in the same glowing restraints. Sight made his stomach turn. How many people were trapped in this floating prison? Remember, Jake said quietly to his crew, act defeated until we find the others. These aliens think they understand how humans behave. Let's keep it that way. Until it's too late for them to adapt. The docking bay filled with a soft chiming sound, and a group of aliens entered. They moved with the same fluid grace as the curator, but these seemed to be workers rather than leaders. They approached the Valiant carrying devices that looked like oversized tablets. Scanning us, Dr. Jensen whispered, probably checking for weapons and recording our biological data. One of the aliens touched something on its device, and suddenly Jake could understand its words. The translation device was more advanced than anything in Coalition space. 43 specimens collected, the alien said to its companions. 12 humans, various other species. All appear to be in acceptable condition for study. The humans show elevated stress hormones, another alien replied. But this is normal for their species. They will adapt to containment as others have. Jake bit back his first response. These creatures talked about people like they were livestock, but getting angry now would ruin everything. The aliens opened the Valiant's airlock and gestured for everyone to exit. Jake led his people out, hands raised in apparent surrender. The aliens herded them through corridors that seemed to bend and twist in impossible ways. The walls were smooth and featureless, glowing with their own internal light. Where are you taking us? Dr. Hayes asked one of the aliens. To the specimen holding areas. You will be comfortable there. Your needs will be met while we conduct our studies. They passed through several sections of the ship. Jake tried to memorize the layout, but the corridors seemed to change when he wasn't looking directly at them. This ship didn't follow normal physics. Finally, they reached a large chamber filled with transparent cells. Each cell held beings from different species. Jake saw Zephyrians, Centaurians, Andromedans, and dozens of other races he didn't recognize. And there, in a group of cells near the center of the room, were humans. Ben, someone called out. Jake turned and saw a young woman with bright eyes and a familiar smile. Ben's cousin from Kepler station. She was alive. Kate? Ben started forward, but one of the aliens blocked his path with an energy barrier. Specimens are not permitted to interact during the initial observation period, the alien explained. You will be separated by species for optimal study conditions. Like hell we will, Jake said. The alien turned its large dark eyes toward him. Resistance is irrational. Your situation cannot be changed through aggression. Maybe not. Humans don't give up just because something is hard. Jake had been waiting for this moment. While the aliens were focused on him, Amy and Dr. Jensen had positioned themselves near the control panels along the walls. Ace Ben had moved closer to the energy barriers holding the other prisoners. Now Jake shouted. Amy slammed her hand down on the nearest control panel. She didn't know what it would do, but she knew alien technology often had fail-safes that could be triggered by unexpected input. Alarms started blaring throughout the chamber. Dr. Jensen grabbed one of the alien guards and wrestled away its control device. The alien was taller than him, but it had clearly never been in a physical fight before. It went down hard. Ben punched his way through the confused aliens to reach the cell controls. His engineering background helped him recognize power flow patterns even in alien technology. He started pressing buttons and pulling connections until the energy barriers around the human prisoners flickered and died. What are you doing? Kate called out as she stepped from her cell. This is suicide, maybe Jake said, fighting off two aliens who were trying to restrain him. But it's our choice to make. The other human prisoners poured out of their cells. There were more than Jake had expected. Scientists, explorers, cargo haulers, even a few coalition military personnel who had been captured while investigating. Missing ships. Listen up. Jake shouted over the alarms.
I'm Commander Jake Morrison. We're getting everyone out of here, but we need to work together. Anyone who knows how to fight with me. Everyone else help free the other prisoners. A woman
In a torn coalition uniform stepped forward. Lieutenant Sarah Kim, Coalition Marines. Sir, these aliens have never fought a coordinated resistance before. They're not ready for military tactics. Good. Then let's show them what humans do when we fight as a unit instead of individuals. The battle that followed was unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. Most species, when captured, either accepted their fate or made desperate individual attempts to escape. But humans did something different. They organized. They worked together. They turned their captivity into a coordinated military operation. The aliens had studied human behavior, but they had studied humans reacting to capture and isolation. They had never seen humans fighting as a pack to protect others. Marine Lieutenant Kim took charge of the combat operations, directing the freed prisoners to secure the control room. Dr. Jensen organized the medical personnel to treat injured prisoners. Ben and the other engineers worked to disable the ship's internal security systems. Jake found himself face to face with the curator as they fought their way toward the ship's bridge. The alien leader looked genuinely puzzled by what was happening. This behavior was not predicted, the curator said. Our models indicated that humans, when faced with overwhelming odds, would attempt individual escape or accept containment. Your models were wrong, Jake said. You studied humans in isolation, but humans are pack animals. When you threaten our pack, we don't just get scared, we get dangerous. Fascinating. You are willing to risk certain death for beings who are not even your offspring or genetic relatives. That's what makes us human. Jake tackled the curator, and they crashed into a control panel. Ship shuddered as critical systems went offline. Around them, the rescued prisoners were taking control of the alien vessel section by section. Sir, Lieutenant Kim called out, we've secured the docking bay. All the captured ships are free to launch. And the other aliens? Most of them retreated to the other ships in their fleet. I don't think they knew how to handle a coordinated assault. Jake looked at the curator, who lay stunned on the floor. You wanted to study us? Well, here's your final lesson. Humans don't just survive. We make sure others survive too, even when it's stupid, even when it's dangerous, because that's who we are. The escape from the alien fleet was chaotic, but successful. The freed ships scattered in all directions, carrying news of the alien collectors across the galaxy. The EU's Valiant led a group of the rescued vessels back toward Coalition space. Ben sat on the bridge with his cousin Kate, both of them grinning despite their exhaustion. I can't believe that worked, Kate said. It worked because we did something they'd never seen before, Jake explained. They studied how individual humans react to capture, but they never studied how humans react when our friends and family are threatened. Amy looked up from her navigation console. Captain, we're getting messages from across the sector. Ships requesting human assistance with various emergencies. Jake looked at the communication display. There were dozens of requests, all asking specifically for human help. Word had spread that when humans answered a distress call, they didn't just provide assistance. They took it personally. What are your orders, sir? Amy asked. Jake thought about the original distress call from Dr. Hayes that had started this whole adventure. It had been a call for anyone to help. But somewhere along the way, it had become something more. It had become a call that only humans could truly answer. Set course for the nearest emergency, Jake said. Looks like we've got work to do. The stars stretched out before them as the Valiant jumped to hyperspace, carrying a crew that had learned something important about themselves. When someone called for help, humans didn't just answer. They made it personal. And that made all the difference in a galaxy full of dangers and wonders. The call had been for anyone. But Deathworlders had made it personal, and the galaxy would never be quite the same.